Hello, this is the continuation of my Game of Thrones review, and I wanted everyone to remember that you're playing humans, like I said, and you get the bonus skill ranks and the bonus feat, and you can basically use these feats from the house or your background, and some you can only get at first level. Onto the class level bonuses. There's base saves as normal, base attack bonuses normal. Again, strength and dex don't add to attack because armor is damage reduction. Defense bonus is given by level and class, and that adds to your AC. GM should let you basically get another class ability if you multi-class and your new class already has something you have. It just kind of makes sense because multi-classing is so popular in this game. So if you're a GM, be kind of easygoing as far as that goes, and players don't really, don't try to get more than what what your original thing that you're trying to replace was worth. But again, it's commonplace to multi-class in this game. All skills are class skills for multi-class characters, as I talked about before. Feats gained from bonus human feats, classes, and from levels 1, 3, 6, 9, etc. Ability scores are normal. You basically gain influence points per level, and it's different per class. It goes into a section talking about women's roles in the setting and exceptions like Brienne. You gain reputation points by class and level, and you don't actually have a reputation until you have that first reputation point. Again, that could be like stingy, +1, and that would normally be a negative thing. Classes really seem to fit the world. They just seem to scream out the setting. There's less dead levels than D&D 3.5, so it kind of reminded me of Pathfinder, especially with the beautiful art. I'm not a big crunch guy, but there are some cool abilities in there. The prestige classes are easier to get. There's less prerequisites than D&D 3.5. Some of the prestige classes are the Dothraki Blood Rider, Commander, which is basically a military strategist, King's Guard, there's only 7 that guard the king, Knight, the Night's Watch Ranger, the Night's Watch Steward, Spy, and Water Dancer, which is the Bravos Fighter, which is more kind of like a dex fighter. Swashbuckler sort of thing. And I really like the Water Dancer's abilities because they're named after Arya's teachings when she's being trained in the book, and that just made me smile. Chapter 7 are skills. And again, all multi-class characters all their skills are class skills, no matter what level they're going up the next level. And again, the bonus skills for being a human. There's optional rules for breaking the skill maximum ranks. Normally it's level +3, but there's an option for a level +3 plus intelligence bonus, or you just get rid of the maximums for skills altogether. I wouldn't recommend that option. It seems a little too unbalanced for me. And there's more synergy bonuses than in the standard D&D 3.5. Social static gives that +4 bonus if you're a rank higher than political enemies, like I said before. You can substitute reputation or another ability modifier for certain skills with the GM permission. So if there's a certain situation where you think you can get away with it, you can kind of wheel and deal with your GM a little bit. The skill descriptions are a bit more vague because the game designers wanted you to use skills for more things. They eliminated concentration and the use magic device. And there's the optional roles for the skill specializations. You get one for free, and they basically just give you a +1 bonus whenever that specialization comes up. Like I said, this reminded me of the White Wolf, and they're in parentheses. They are listed in the skill description of the NPCs. If you don't use them in your game, you can just ignore them. And there's an optional rule again for a second skill specialization, and it costs you the same as a new skill rank. Craft and knowledge skills have been tweaked to fit the setting. And there's some suggestions for diplomacy and how diplomacy works with influence, and it's definitely worth reading. They added another layer of complexity And I'm not sure if I like it or not. There are familiar skills, unfamiliar skills, and required skills. And there's different lists for these. And required are kind of like restricted. You have to have knowledge to use them. Unfamiliar skills, you have like a -2 to -10 penalty because you're really not that great at using them. But you can really ignore this level of complexity, I think. I don't know if it's unnecessary or if it's kind of cool. I'm not really sure. I haven't made up my mind on that. Chapter 8 is feats. And wealth is a feat with ranks. That's kind of the exception. Background and house feats can be taken at the start of the game. But you can also take general feats. And there's legendary feats, which you need GM permission to take. There's not that many of them, and I think that there's a lot of room here for GMs to make their own legendary feats, depending on what kind of level of supernatural ability they want to give their players. Legendary feats need the approval of GMs. And some feats have house and background as prerequisites. Feats are in 3 categories: background, general, and legendary. Item creation and metamagic feats were removed because they don't exist. And the designer of the book recommends that players and GMs stick to the feats in the book because they were all thought out, revised, and tweaked to fit the setting. But you can bring in other feats from other games with GM's permission. Just don't expect them. A lot of the feats that were +2 to 2 different skills were removed. Blind fighting uses the concealment rules instead of the blind fighting feat. And feats dealing with attack of opportunities were removed. When I saw this, I did a little happy dance. I'm not a big fan of the tactical nature of attack of opportunities. If you are, that's cool. To each his own. I'm not. So when I saw that, and it's a less tactical version of combat using the D20 engine, that made me smile. I really enjoy that they're doing that, and they're trying to focus more on the story aspect of things and not necessarily the tactical movements on the battlefield. I put a little smiley face in my notes right there. Deflect arrows and greater 2-weapon fighting, rapid shot, etc. were removed because they're too cinematic. Die Hard was replaced with the shock value and bleeding rules. Other feats were tweaked to fit the setting better. Leadership was replaced by influence points. They went with the 3rd edition version of Power Attack because the 3.5 they said was too powerful. Skill Focus was replaced by Skill Mastery. Track is basically you just use the survival skill instead. You don't need a track feat. And the names of the feats really just scream out the flavor of the setting. I was really impressed with the titles of all the different feats, and it just honestly, reading through the feats made me excited to maybe try to play this game someday. And I don't know, some of them are just awesome, like Blood of the Dragon, Blood of the First Men. There's some standard names here for D&D feats, like there's other ones like Giant's Blood, Hear Me Roar, Leechcraft. There's just some really cool sounding feats that I think, like Silver Tongue, Stubborn, Twins. There's just things, Unchained Giant, Unknown Heritage, Winter is Coming. When I saw the names of some of these feats, it just made me smile. It made me realize that the person that crafted this game really loved the setting and wanted to put that extra level of effort into things. Okay, Chapter 9 is Reputation and Influence. This is what I mean again, that we're going back and doing the same thing over again, but in more detail. Some characters gain reputation and influence faster. And, okay, they can have multiple reputations. An example is a level 15 noble has +6 reputation points to spend. So you could have 2 reputations at +3 each, or you could have a +5 reputation and +1 reputation, depending on how you want to do it. A bad reputation can be good at times, especially if people are afraid of you, but it can be negative at times as well. Reputation can add to social skills, and you add half of your reputation to influence rolls. And we'll do the influence rolls here in a second. If you have multiple reputations, they should be distinct. You don't want ones that are very similar to each other, because why would you want to do that? You should really just sync them all into the same one. GMs are told here basically to twist a good reputation and make it a hindrance at times. Maybe if you're good, you might be in a situation where you're thought to be naive, that sort of thing. Players that play against their reputation, and basically as a character tries to evolve and tries to work through their problems, you can actually get reputation points back to spend on other reputations. So, let's say that your character had like violent +4, and you had literally tried to roleplay being less violent, or not killing people just because they made you angry. You might have violent +3, and you get that +1 back to spend on, tolerance +1, or, calm +1, whatever you want to call it. You can really name it whatever you want. And influence points it's basically a measure of control, manipulation, leverage, etc. over a group or an NPC. And that represents like blackmail, bribes, intimidation, loyalty, love, fealty, fear, all the above. It's basically an identifier of the NPC or group, and then a bonus. And again, you gain these by class, charisma mod, and level. Social status gives influence points. Each rank of social status equals 5 influence points, or +5. Feats can give influence points, and you basically spend those on a 1-to-1 ratio. So, if you have a plus, like a 1 influence point, it equals a +1. You can't spend influence points on PCs. They must be NPCs or groups. And the GM must approve of them. You can only spend 1 to 3 points, or influence points at a time. You can spend over time, that's not a problem, just you can't, spend, I'm going to spend 10 on this guy right now. You can only have 20 influence points max per NPC, and max of 10 influence points in a group you do not belong to. There's an option for secret influence, and I think this would be really good in a Game of Thrones style game, where you're having people as spies and backstabbing your opponents, which are the other players at the table. It's like that player first player kind of themed. I think that would bring in more attention to the game. And players don't know who your influence groups or NPCs are, unless that's part of the game where they find that out. You can keep influence points and do not spend them, and spend them during play, but only 1 to 3 at a time. And that kind of reminded me of Dogs in the Vineyard, how you have relationships and such. Players can gain and lose titles and social status and power during a game, especially in the Game of Thrones style play. And I think I'm going to go into the next video here and talk about how power can change during a campaign.